Hello, everybody. Leo Babauta from Zen Habits here. It's good to be here with you. And in this video, I'm going to talk about getting into the exercise habit. A lot of you have been wanting to. You've asked this as a question in the comments. And so this is something that is near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give you my top tips if you are just getting started. Now, who is this for? This is for anybody who hasn't been exercising in a while or perhaps even ever. Maybe you have been a bit sedentary, been wanting to exercise, and you just haven't been able to get into the habit. Or maybe you did before years ago, but it's been a while. Maybe COVID disrupted everything for you or some other event, and you just have had a hard time getting back into it. So if that's you, this video is for you. This is not for people who are avid exercisers who are athletes, who are exercising most days of the week already. I will do a more advanced or at least intermediate video for you in the future, but for now, this is for people who are just getting started. And I have a loved one who, it's not that they've never exercised before, but that they want to get into the regular habit. And so this is really with that kind of person in mind. Before I get into the actual tips, a little bit of my background. I am not a physical trainer. I'm definitely not a doctor. If you are someone who has some kind of health concerns at all, definitely get checked out by a doctor. This is not medical advice, and I can't diagnose any of your problems. And so I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical trainer. I am just someone who has developed my own exercise habit for the last 20 years. It was 2005 when I got back into exercise after years of being sedentary. And I started running very, very slow at first. I couldn't even run for 10 minutes. Then I ran my first 5K in a couple months after I got started. And then I said, let me run my first marathon. And so I started training for a year to run my first marathon, and I did it. It was a slow marathon, but I did it. And I ran a couple marathons after that, a little bit faster, not super fast. I've never been a super fast marathoner. One time I did train for and complete a 50-mile ultra marathon. So I'm not the world's greatest endurance athlete. I just barely made that 50 miler, but I am someone who has built up from basically nothing to that. I lost a bunch of weight, about 70 pounds. And I have gotten into a number of things. I was into CrossFit for a while, barefoot running, kettlebell swings, body weight training, which is something I'm back into lately, barbell weight training, squats, deadlifts, overhead press, bench press, that kind of thing. Rings, gymnastic rings, climbing, rowing machine, riding a bike, playing basketball. So I've been into a number of different things. I've walked, many, many steps. Some days I've gotten 30,000 steps in a day. So fairly into the exercise habit, and I have done tons and tons of research into this. So this is something that I'm very passionate about, and I've actually helped other people with, even though I'm not a qualified trainer or coach in that area. So that's my background. I am 51 years old as I make this video, and I have led a very healthy life. Not without problems, not without injuries. I've dealt with knee injury, a partial ACL tear, shoulder impingement, a number of different finger injury from climbing, what else? Heel injury, plantar fasciitis from running, a number of things like that. But in general, I stay fairly injury-free and very active. So that's my background. That isn't to brag. There's definitely people who are much fitter than me, much better athletes, much stronger in many ways. It's definitely also not to make you feel inferior if that's not where you are. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of my background so I've done a lot of this, and I do know a lot about it. So I'm not here to tell you how to get into the best shape of your life, but I am here to share with you how to start getting into the best shape of your life. So I'm going to give you my best tips. And by the way, last like caveat is that if you have injuries, if you have health problems, some of these tips might not work for you. So adjust them according to what you're facing. And again, see a doctor if you actually have some health issues. See a personal trainer if you have some physical limitations. Not everybody can walk, not everybody can run, not everybody can move their bodies in the same ways. Some people have physical limitations. And so I'm going to assume that you can adjust this advice based on your limitations or what you're facing, or get some professional help from someone who does know how to do that. Okay, so first tip is start as small as possible. Now that's going to be obvious for anyone who has actually been reading Zen Habits over the years, but this is something that people ignore all the time. So they, make New Year's resolutions. I'm going to start getting into, shape and exercise all the time. I've done this myself, especially before the 2005, start of my new life. So I would get super into it. I'd get this exercise program and I would go all out. And it would go fairly well. It was really hard, but I was pushing myself and I'm just like hardcore, and it would go fairly well for a little while. But this is not ideal and it isn't sustainable. What is sustainable, and this is something I've done many, many times, and I've helped other people do many, many times, is start as small as possible. So let's say you're like, I haven't been exercising at all. How do I get into it? My recommendation is start walking. Don't try running, but start walking. If you want to do strength training, that's totally fine. Do some body weight exercises like push-ups, squats, that kind of thing. Squats would be just squatting down, standing up. You don't have to have any weights. Push-ups, adjusted, to whatever level you're at. So that could be knee push-ups, it could be regular push-ups, whatever you need to do. So start as small as possible. I recommend walking, and start there. So try and walk 3 or 4 times a week. If you want to go every day, that's totally fine. But in that case, shrink it down. So go out for 10 to 15, 20 minutes. If you're doing 3 or 4 times a week, you can do 15, 20 minutes. But if you're trying to do it every day, just tell yourself all you need to do is go out for a 10-minute walk each day. And I know that's going to seem ridiculously easy. Yes, it is ridiculously easy to do a 10-minute walk every day. But what you're doing is you're actually training yourself to be consistent. You are training yourself that you're not going to be pushing yourself to your limits. You're going to do way less than your limits. So you want to do, if your limit was, let's say, an hour-long walk and you'll be like, oh God, that was really hard, then you should be doing 10 to 20 minutes. And if your limit was a 30-minute walk, then shoot for 5 to 10 minutes. We want to go way below your limit. You want to leave a lot of gas in the tank, so to speak. And the reason for that is because then the next day you're going to be like, oh, this is going to be easy. I can do this. Your resistance is going to be lowered. And you're going to have lots of gas left to go and do it the next day. You want to hold back on your enthusiasm. Don't let yourself use up all of your enthusiasm. That's the mistake that a lot of people make, and they don't last a week or two. If you hold back on your enthusiasm, which is hard, because you're like, oh, I want to do more. If you hold back on it, you're gonna last longer. That enthusiasm will go beyond a couple of weeks. And so this is the biggest tip that you can do. And so I'm recommending starting with walking. Don't power walk, don't run, go easy, enjoy it. And so several times a week. And what we want to do is we want to progress. So that's tip number 2, is progress regularly but slowly. So progression, if you're doing a walk every day, would be maybe I want to, instead of doing 3 walks a week, the next week, let me shoot for 4. The next week, maybe 5. Don't have to increase the length. Once you get up to 5, maybe you're like, okay, now I'm going to go from 15 minutes to 20. Now, I do 20 minutes 5 times a week. The next week, maybe I do 25 for a couple of them. The next week after that, I do 25 for all 5. And so we just slowly add 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. We don't want to be increasing really big, right? Maybe eventually you add a 6th a day when you're like, I'm doing 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and it's easy, and I'm feeling really good. I'm going to do a 6th day. So that would be idea number 2, is progress, but progress really slowly. Regularly, but slowly. Now, if you decided you want to do strength training and you're like, I'm going to do squats and push-ups to start with. So one day I'm going to do some body weight squats, just a few, not a lot of sets. So let's say 5 body weight squats, 3 sets. That means do 5, rest for a couple of minutes, do another 5, rest for a couple of minutes, do another 5. So if you decided to do that, the next day do 5 push-ups 3 times. The next day after that, do squats, then push-ups, then squats. So this is going to be ridiculously easy for a lot of people. It's not going to be for everybody, but it'll be really easy. But so the way to progress would be to add an extra squat in, add an extra push-up in after doing it for 3, if you do push-ups 3 by 5, 3 sets of 5 push-ups for a week. The next week, do 3 by 6, 3 by 7, 3 by 8. Each week, just add 1. And eventually you're going to be doing 3 by 10. Once you get to 3 by 10, maybe now we can add in another kind of exercise. So push-ups, maybe I try and do pull-ups, but I can't do too many. So this would be chin-ups with your palms facing you. So I hang from the bar and I just kind of do that. I'm just going to do like a little bit of a pull-up. Or an actual pull-up would be with your palms facing away. Maybe you just hang for 10, 20 seconds. And maybe then you try and pull your arms up a little bit. And eventually you're going to be able to do a full pull-up. Maybe you progress to jumping up to the bar with your chin here, and then you slowly lower. Try not to do it too much like that. So we can slowly add in other exercises. With squats, we might add in some body weight lunges. Look up these exercises on YouTube. There are progressions for each of these. But what we're talking about is either walking or strength training. We're going to slowly progress. So that's tip number 2. Number 3 is make it fun. So if you're going to go out for a walk, do it with someone else would be the funnest option, I think. Listen to an audiobook, listen to some really good music, let yourself just jam to it as you're out there walking. Same thing, if you're gonna do push-ups, play some music. Do it with a family member who wants to get into shape. What you're gonna find is after a few weeks of this, you're gonna be looking forward to it more because you're making it fun. You're gonna be progressing. You started really small, and after doing it this way, starting really small, progressing slowly, making it fun, you're going to have a habit that will last much longer. Now I'm going to give you some bonus tips. So those were my top 3 tips, plus I'm going to give you some bonus tips now. So bonus tip number 1 is that rest is really important. And going along with that, listen to your body. So if you're super sore because you did some push-ups, and then the next time you're supposed to do push-ups, you're like, I'm supposed to do push-ups today, but I'm really sore. Let yourself have a rest day. It's okay to rest if your body's feeling really achy or sore. If you've been walking for several days in a row and you're like, my legs are sore. I'm feeling a little bit, mentally fatigued. I don't feel like going out for a walk. Let yourself have a rest day. Now, what we don't want to do is give in to that urge to have a rest day every day, right? Like, yeah, I don't want to do it today. I don't want to do it today. That could be more mental resistance than anything else. But what we also don't want to do is just ignore our body's signals. So if we're super sore and our body's fatigued and we're mentally fatigued, maybe take a rest day. Rest days are positive things for the long run, which would be bonus tip number 2 is the long run is actually what matters most. What you do today matters way less than the long run. So, if you're going to try and go super hard today and leave nothing in the tank, Great, you had a super amazing day today, but what about tomorrow? What about the next day? Maybe tomorrow you're going to be like too exhausted to work out. Maybe the day after that as well. And maybe it's for 3 or 4 days. And so you actually hurt yourself because you got one really hard day in and 3 or 4 no days in, 0 days. And what we want to do instead is give yourself, an easy day of working out so that you can continue to do it over the time. This run is all that matters idea also works if you miss a day or two. Some days we're just going to miss the planned days. That's okay, because missing today isn't a big deal if I think for the long run. Missing today is like, okay, great. Let me just get back on it tomorrow. We want to just get back on it. So the long run is the thing that matters the most. Another bonus tip is we want to prepare our joints for the intermediate stage that we're going to get to later. So preparing our joints. So let's imagine you have more ambitions than just doing some push-ups and bodyweight squats. Okay, great. I have some tips for you. Sit in a squat. So just sit down in squat position, just like as if you're just squatting down on the floor. You might look up kind of an outdated term would be third world squats. And the reason why is because in many countries that aren't the rich, Western nations, in many countries in Africa and Asia and South America, Central America, they have a tradition, and in the islands that I'm coming from, this tradition exists as well, of sitting down on your haunches and just resting there. It's a resting position, and they would do that when they're not out in the field working or hunting or whatever they might be doing. They just sit down and rest. They might be smoking a cigarette or having a beer or whatever. Sometimes they're just hanging out, just shooting the breeze with each other. So what we want to do is kind of mimic that. That's just a natural human position. Sit down in a squat for 10, 20 seconds, multiple times a day. So let's say taking a break from work, you want to get up out of your chair, sit down on the ground. You could look at your phone if you want to while you're sitting there. And eventually you want to progress with that as well. Maybe you want to do, instead of 10 or 20 seconds, do 30 seconds. Eventually you can do a minute. And then if you're ambitious, you can keep going beyond that. But just slowly add 10 seconds. I've seen people do 10 minutes at once. I personally can do 2 or 3 minutes without being in too much discomfort. But that's something that I built up over time. And what that does is it builds up your joints and flexibility. So that's one that I would really recommend. The other one is one that I just mentioned earlier, which is just hanging from a bar. So you have a pull-up bar or a playground bar, just let yourself hang. And if you don't have a pull-up bar, they have them at the gym, obviously, but you might find one outside. There might be a tree branch that's accessible, or do what I do, which is you can get just a doorway pull-up bar that can just attach to the frame of your door and hook into that and be stable enough. Don't rock on it so that it falls off of the door frame, but just hang from it. And for that, you want to do, again, 10, 20 seconds. Eventually you can build up to 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and up to a minute or beyond. You don't need to go much beyond a minute. But what you're doing here is you're strengthening your joints. When I say joints, there are tendons and ligaments that are in shoulders, that are in wrists, elbows, knees, hips, ankles, and so forth. Even here, as we're doing this, we're strengthening all of the tendons in our hands as we hang. So we're supporting our body weight. We're not doing anything. You can just do a passive hang, which means you don't have to have your shoulder blades retracted. You can just let them hang like this, and you just hang. And that builds up strength. The muscles get stronger in your shoulders and your shoulder girdle. But it also just builds up the tendons. Another thing you can do is get down on the ground and put your hand. I just get on my knees and I put my hands down on the ground, and then I just kind of rock back and forth on that. And what that does is it strengthens your wrists and fingers. So you can just kind of like put some weight on that. And this is a good thing to do during your break. So if you're going to take a break from sitting, get down on your knees and flex your wrists. Sometimes I do pulses so that my wrist goes up, my fingers stay on the ground. Other times I might turn my wrist sideways or even backwards. And what this does is strengthens the wrist. And that can help you if you ever eventually want to do like handstands or cartwheels or anything like that. If you ever want to do climbing, this hanging is really good too because it strengthens these tendons. There's other ways to strengthen the tendons as well, but these are some good ways to get started. There are a number of other mobility exercises you can do. Stretching, look up Cossack squats is another really good one that stretches and strengthens. Pike stretch, pancake stretch, these kinds of things can strengthen and stretch out your body, which is something that I really have needed for years, and now I'm getting into. I'm super inflexible naturally, and then just sitting a lot and not actually doing any kind of flexibility work over the years, decades, has led me to being really stiff and inflexible, which leads me to be more prone to injury. So eventually I started, actually just in the last 6 months, really started getting into mobility and flexibility work. So I highly recommend that you get into these really easy things, but you can do, some sit on the ground, squat for 10, 20 seconds, several times a day. Same thing with hanging. These are, we would call them bonus things, and they're good things to just sprinkle throughout your day. Micro-dosing movement so that you can be active and not sitting too much, but also strengthening these things. And over time, eventually you're going to have a strong grip, be able to squat on the ground, good flexibility, strong legs, strong hip flexors, and so forth. And eventually this will help you as you get into other kinds of exercises, some sports, and so forth. Last bonus tip, which is, if you have a way to get into sport, basketball, soccer, pickleball, tennis, racquetball, cycling with other people, something that you can do for fun with others, is this might be better than the exercises that I've already recommended, from squats and push-ups and walking. Playing sports with other people, highly recommended because it's fun. Don't overdo it. Start easy, start small, just go out there and have fun with other people. Make sure you're doing some warm-ups before, and stretching is really good as well. But warm your joints up if you're going to do sports. So some arm swings for the shoulders, stretch out do some squats and lunges to kind of like warm up your legs. Do some light jogging to get your whole body warmed up before you do some sports so you don't injure yourself. But sports is a great way to get into exercise. Now, let's say you want to start running. Last bonus tip. So if you want to get into running, and I recommended walking, you're like, but I want to be running. Start with walking first. Get yourself into some regular movement. And what I want you to do is, after a couple of weeks of that, start sprinkling in a little bit of running. And so what we're going to be doing is, let's say I go out for a 30-minute walk. During that 30-minute walk, I might run for 20 or 30 seconds. And then walk for a couple of minutes, then run for another 20 or 30 seconds. And when I say run, I mean a really light jog. Eventually, you can sprinkle in more of these 20 or 30-second runs. Maybe eventually get to a minute for some of the runs, but make it really slow and gradual. And what's going to happen is, not only will your cardiovascular system slowly build up strength, and your lungs as well, but your tendons and your joints. We are not used to running if we have been sedentary for a long time. The problem is that people start going into running really fast, and then they start to get injured. And this has happened over and over again. Plantar fasciitis is one thing. It's basically the near your heel. Achilles tendonitis is another one. Tendinopathy is what they call it now. So basically, what that means is we are overusing our tendons, and that's because our tendons take a while to build up. And so what I want you to do is just really slowly build in running or any other kind of sport, very, very slowly and gradually while you're strengthening, while you're letting your body adapt. And what happens is if you ramp up super slowly, you will be preparing your body to take that kind of load. We overload our body when we ramp up fast, and our body is not ready to handle it, especially the joints, the tendons. And so I highly recommend, if you want to start running, just sprinkle in some running into the walking. I did this. My wife did it. Eventually, she was able to run, 11 miles without stopping. But that's all because at first it was walk, 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 and then walk, a little bit of run with walking. And then eventually you can run more without walking. If you do your first 5K, let yourself have walk breaks, even though you're running at that point most of the time. It's good to have walks. Okay, that's what I've got for you. Keep it fun, keep it small, progress slowly, let yourself have a long-term attitude, let yourself rest, do it with other people, bring sport into it, and then sprinkle in little strengthening things over the course of a day. Thanks, my friends. Good luck with this. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Spread the word. Give me the like for this video if this was helpful. Share it with others. Subscribe. If you know someone who needs some Zen habits in their lives, please share this channel with them. Thanks, my friends. Talk to you later.